Hello, welcome back to my Tech Fun. A few months ago I created a video about experimenting with 3D printing closed loop timing belts. With a little bit mixed results. At the beginning very promising, but the transmitted torque was a little bit smaller, but in the meantime I got a lot of suggestions to test this from the nylon because I tested only TPU materials. And in that video I promised that I will create a Fusion 360 tutorial how can we design different size of the timing belts. Well, this is this video. Important to mention that I will create a design optimized for 3D printing. With this designing is simpler and less processing power is needed from the computer. This means that these teeth will be squared and not rounded, because I know when it will be printed the extruded material from the nozzle is rounded, they will be very similar. And if I take a closer look of these timing belts, which are printed with different designs, I can see they are very similar, so I cannot see any difference between them. So this one is printed with the rounded design, this with square. And if I take a closer look, basically after 3D printing they look equal. And here you can see them under the microscope. Okay, let's jump into designing. First I want to explain what will I do. So these are the dimensions of the GT2 timing belt, and these are my modifications. Of course, I will keep these dimensions here, and 2mm step is very important, but instead of this curve, I will have this rectangle in the design. The width is 0.9mm. This means it can be easily printed with a 0.4mm nozzle, even if we set the line width to 0.45mm. And also I will keep this 0.75mm dimensions. Now sometimes 3D printed, these dimensions is a little bit smaller, so in that case you can raise the dimension here, but don't forget it affects this dimension too, so this also has to be raised. And if I separate this one element, I will get this. Now this dimension is now 2.05mm, and from the reason when I create an offset of 2mm and I rotate it a little bit, in that case I want to have this overlap because I want to join these two elements together. And this construction line is very important in calculating the length. So here you can see those two elements, and the length of the timing belt is equal to the perimeter of this circle, and it is equal to diameter multiply p. Here are two examples. Let's say if we want to have the closed loop timing belt of the 100mm diameter. In that case the perimeter is 314mm, and we will have 157 pieces of the teeth. In the second example, and this I will design in few seconds in Fusion 360, let's say we need 300mm length timing belt or 150 teeth. In that case, if I divide this with the P, I will have 95.5mm diameter. And actually in design you will see I will need the radius, so if I divide this with 2, I will need a radius of 47.75mm. And this is Fusion 360. I'm starting a sketch. And first I will create a construction line. And distance of this construction line from the origin will be that radius I explained a few seconds ago, 47.75mm. And now I will zoom here and draw the rest of the element. But this is not a construction line anymore. I will mirror these lines. And now I am giving the dimensions. And this is that one element. And now I am extruding this, let's say 6mm wide timing belt. And now I'm creating a pattern, a circular pattern. This body I want to copy, and the axis will be this origin. And in previous calculation I need 150 elements. And pay attention that thanks to that 2.05mm I have overlap between two elements, so it is very important that I don't have this hole here. Okay. but they are still separate elements, so I have to combine them into one element. I will just select one and other bodies. OK. And this is now one element. Let's rename it GT2 150. Now let's say 300 millimeters. And exactly this object, together with the Fusion 360 source file, you can download from printables.com. I can export it and import into Slicer if I want to and print it. And after printing, this teeth will have nice rounded shape like regular GT timing belt. And here is one last tip for the end. Let's say you need a timing belt which is too big for your 3D printing bed. In that case, you can create something like this. Let me explain you shortly. First, you have to create a spline with this command here, and you can play with the length. So with the measure, you can check the length of the spline, and you have to resize it with the sketch scale until you get the desired length. And when the length is correct, in that case, on the spline, you have to create this one element which I presented a few seconds ago. Very important is that this construction line must be exactly on this spline. Next is we have to extrude that one element, and then we have to go to the create pattern, and not circular pattern but pattern on path. And here you can see my settings, so very important, the path direction, spacing, and spacing should be around 2 millimeters, and of course the quantity of the elements should be the number of the teeth for this length of the timing belt. And very important that you cannot have gaps between the elements. If I zoom in a little bit better, here you can see we have the overlap tends to that 2.05 millimeter dimension. In case you have too small radius on that spline, in that case some gaps may appear, so that's why you have to pay attention to this when the object is prepared. I have a lot of elements, but I have to combine them into one element. And now this object is ready for the exporting, importing into Slicer, and for 3D printing. And for the end, I know there are skeptic people, but I know that there are applications where we can use these 3D printing timing belts. Okay, the transmitted torque is a little bit smaller, but we can increase this by using a wider timing belts and wider pulleys, which can also be 3D printed. Also, the same ratio but bigger diameter pulleys can help with this transmitted torque. And soon I will try these timing belts from nylon too, because I tested only TPU material, thanks to your comments. Because I have some Polymaker nylon filament review in progress. When I finished it, then I will play with the timing belts from the nylon, because what we need here is the flexible material but not elastic. In that case, the transmitted torque will be even bigger. There will be probably a video about it, so I will suggest you to subscribe and click the notification button, because I know that my channel is still very small, and personal experience from my friend that if you just subscribe, you will not always get the notifications about new video. And of course, I would like to thank to all my Patreon, Buy Me Coffee or PayPal donations, because they keep me motivated to create this kind of videos too. And as you can see, I'm learning for comments, so if you have some suggestion, drop me a line in the comment section. Maybe it will result some new video topics too. Until that, thank you for watching and happy designing and 3D printing. Bye!